I can go to great restaurants. I can sit in wonderful bars and have conversations with people from all over the city, but I don't have a grocery store. I live here and I don't have a grocery store. My name is Fredrick Terry, and I'm a native of Dallas, although I took a detour for about 25 years and lived in other parts of the country. But I moved back in 2023 and bought the house I grew up in Oak Cliff, and now I'm back in the neighborhood I grew up in. My dad worked for Kroger from the time he was 19 until he retired when he was 63. So that's 43 years he spent it with Kroger. And then when I graduated from college in the early 90s and was looking for a job, he was kind enough to help me get my first job. And I worked for Kroger as an assistant manager for about 3 years. Growing up, when you're a kid, you don't really think about the efforts that your parents have to go through in certain parts of the city to make sure there's food in your house, quality food. And so my mom would say things like, I went to East Dallas, I was off Gulf Thomas in a day, or I went to North Dallas, and while I was out there, I stopped at Kroger, or I stopped at something else, and there's always food. And so that's really all I'm concerned about. I'm a kid. As you start to get older and you realize that just didn't happen by happenstance, there was a lot of effort that went into this. And because of where we lived, in this area of Dallas, we didn't have a word for food desert. We just didn't have a grocery store. That's what we called it. What it means to us and what it means to not have one, to me, it means that certain neighborhoods are valued more than others. It's as simple as that. This part of Dallas, although this area to me is amazing, I think it's comparable to certain other areas in the state of Texas and other cities that I've lived in that do have grocery stores and support them very well. I think this is an example of where Dallas is just behind the curve on this thing. Houston, San Antonio, and Austin are all serviced by H-E-B, and they're serviced in the inner city as well. And they have very nice grocery stores there, and we just haven't gotten it here yet. There is a Kroger store at Wynwood, but I've spoken to, because I know some of their people as well, I've spoken to I think he's the head of marketing, Mr. Rotata. And quite honestly, I said, you guys wouldn't show that. You would not show that store to anyone else in the Kroger chain. They would not. That's not an example of a quality grocery store. We know what quality is. You've got two options here. You can either go into the stores that they provide for you and shop. And in some cases, Fiesta's not a bad for some items, but for a total experience, for everything that you want, you got to go outside of this area. When I left here in '96, that's when I moved away. I just thought through the march of time over the years, people would realize, wow, this is really, really a place that's underserved. There's no competition here. We're going to put a store here. I thought that would happen. That was very naive of me. Some of the same politicians were in office in '96 that are still in office today. And I've talked to some of them. I won't name names, but I've talked to some of them. And they just kind of taken basically, well, it may happen one day, kind of a laissez-faire type of opinion on this thing. And I think this, to me, this is job one. If someone could bring this to this area, I think you win conservatives, liberals, independents, agnostics, everybody, because everyone needs groceries. Everyone has to shop somewhere. And I don't think this is even a political issue. I just think I think it's an economic civil rights issue is what I really believe it is. And that's why it bothers me so that we're still dealing with this now, this year being 30 years from the time I left. And so why H-E-B? Quite simply, when I started doing some research, stumbled upon in the Dallas appraisal district that they own the land at Beckley and Davis. The more I looked into it, they've owned the land since 2017. They bought it in the summer of 2017. They've not developed it. They've not done anything. It was a vacant lot when they bought it, and it's still a vacant lot. And if one thing that Oak Cliff does not need more of is vacant lots. So, and as I tried to impress upon their senior leadership, I said, you're literally coming into a neighborhood that you would have no competition. With your brand recognition and no competition, the only thing that I think you'd have to worry about is, do we have enough parking space to accommodate all the traffic that we're going to have here? There's nothing over here that would even come close to it. Just nothing. And they told me at first their response to me was, we're looking for bigger lots. We want 20 to 22 acre sites. And I said respectfully that, in Houston, where you built on the edge of Third Ward, which is similar to this area here, you built on a much smaller site. I think the store is maybe 95,000 square feet, but that was their position. So I showed them. There was at the time, it's being developed now for an apartment complex, but at the time there was a vacant area at Colorado and 909 Colorado, 15 acres. And I said, hey, would you be interested in this? And that was in the summer of 24. And they said, well, we looked at it. We're still two things. It's too close to our other lot that we're not developing, by the way. And it's not big enough. I said, okay, fine. So we really didn't have any other correspondence about it until in January of last year, they announced that they were buying a 10-acre site at Hillcrest in 635. I think the safe thing to say is about HEB, and maybe other grocery chains that I haven't done as much research about, but I will say this about HEB. In some neighborhoods, they're grocery stores. In other neighborhoods, they're land speculators. And I think both of those things are true. And although people will say we don't have enough density here, my response to them is people have to go shop somewhere. All of us that live here, if you were to go around and just ask them randomly, where do you go shop? Where do you buy your food? And everyone has a story, but we're all having to go somewhere. So these dollars that they say that we don't have enough density to support a store are supporting other stores in other parts of the city. Same dollars. That's one of the things that really bothers me. My dollar is the same dollar on the southern side of the sector as it is on the northern side of the sector. About the same goods and services. The only difference is I have less choice here on the southern sector. And that bothers me. It really does.